All right, you guys, hello and welcome to this video. A little shout out to the Pathfinder group. Y'all have given me some great suggestions for videos for me to make, and I'm going to start making these kinds of videos. So if you have a suggestion, please drop a comment below and let me know what kind of videos you'd like me to make. This one is, how is Mercury retrograde going to affect me? So every single one of us has the planet Mercury in our birth chart. It falls in a sign and it falls in a house, and both of those things will give you the information that you need to know about how this might impact you. So I'm going to talk about Mercury. I'm going to take you through the signs. I'll do the houses in another video and maybe over the weekend, and maybe. And so you can understand how this particular planet will impact you during a retrograde or not a retrograde. So Mercury is one of our personal planets, right? We all have sun, moon. Rising is just a point on your birth chart. We have Mercury, Venus, and Mars. These are all personal planets. They're very close to the sun. They are, and Western astrology really literally revolves around the sun. So Mercury is moving quickly, and it's also moving pretty close to where the sun is. Okay, so if you were born a Gemini, you likely have your Mercury in Gemini, or you have it in the sign before or after, right? It's usually very close to the time or to the sign of your sun sign. All right, so Mercury is about how we communicate. Mercury is the messenger of the gods, right? That is the myth around Mercury. And how we communicate, how we learn, what engages our curiosity, how we relate to the world in general. That's what Mercury is. And I'm going to take you through each of the signs and give you a sense of, what it might look like to you. Okay. First of all, I'm making this video we're almost in Gemini season. And so Mercury is the ruler of Gemini. So I thought this was a good time to do it. It is about, in my view also, it's not just about how we communicate, but it is the stories we tell. And it's the quality of the stories. It's the impact of the stories. Life is about story. And if you don't believe me, just try to get through a one day without telling a story or without hearing a story. Stories anchor us to meaning. It's how we make meaning in our life. And Mercury in retrograde for me is about telling ourselves stories. So what are the stories you're telling yourself? Is this a positive experience, or is this something that you're doing to kind of like contain your enthusiasm or knock yourself down? Is there a self-deprecating sense of humor getting out of control? Is it something that are you constantly gossiping or eye rolling or whatever it is? There's a lot more to story than the physical act of telling it. There is facial expression. There is tone. There is intention, right? So all of these things play a role in our communication. And if you can get a handle on how you communicate, you can see how you can use this Mercury tool to manifest your life, manifest what you want to happen, right? Some people use communication as a weapon. Some people use it, to manipulate other people or to get them to do something that they want them to do. Others use it as diplomacy. Others use it as a way of separating themselves from people, right? Not talking or not communicating with people. So let's go through the signs here, and I'll talk a little bit about each one. So check your birth chart. I'm going to drop a link below in the description box of a place you can get a free birth chart. If you don't have one, if you don't know what your Mercury sign is, I'll drop it in the description box. We have one actually on our website, so you can go there, get your free birth chart, and see where Mercury is. Now, Mercury moves pretty fast, so birth time is important for these personal planets because they do move quickly. The moon and Mercury move very quickly, and so you're going to want to make sure you have your correct birth time. Okay, so let's start with Aries. Okay, let's start with Aries. And what do we know about Aries? Aries is about being bold. Okay, so when Mercury is direct, that might be seen as a good thing. Okay, you might get promoted because you're having good leadership skills, or you're interested in things, and so you're always seeking out new information, right? And the thing is about Mercury in retrograde for Aries is you must be careful about speaking too quickly. Like if someone is suggesting you do something and you kind of agree to something really quickly, you're going to want to watch that, because you could get yourself into a place where you're either over committing yourself, or you're like, why did I do that? Why did I say yes for that? Aries in Mercury, when we are in Mercury retrograde, there can be arguments, quick to argument, quick to rebut someone else's comments. You might get yourself in trouble on Twitter for being, kind of too much of a naysayer or too much of an attack dog or something like that. You just want to be careful about that. And Mercury retrograde is really just about being mindful of these things. So don't get scared about these things. Astrology is about working with the energy. So Aries, if you have a tendency to speak fast, shoot from the hip, be a little more mindful in Mercury retrograde, because that might get you into trouble. Okay. Mercury in Taurus. Now this is like super opposite of Aries, because Taurus people are very specific about their words. They choose very carefully what they're going to say. The thing about Taurus though is underneath that they're this slow energy. So some of you with Mercury in Taurus could not speak at all, or not respond to somebody fast enough, and that gets you into trouble. You could also resort to some, sarcasm is, or eye rolly kind of thing is a Taurus. That's a little chink in the armor for Taurus Mercury, is that if you're a little too cutting with your remarks, that can get you into trouble too. So you want to be a little more balanced, and maybe be mindful of when someone is speaking with you, or especially over texting or emailing, that you're going to want to be mindful of responding to people. You don't want to get caught out or have people put stories in their head about why you're not responding to their invitation or why you're not texting back. You just want to be mindful of this. Okay? All right. Now, Gemini, Mercury rules Gemini and Virgo. Okay, so I'll get to Virgo in a second. But Mercury rules Gemini. And so Geminis are super good conversationalists, a little bit flirty, but very curious, very interested. They relate to the world very well. They tell stories very well. And so the flip side of this is, even though you're a good conversationalist, even though conversation is your stock in trade, you could come off as scattered in Mercury retrograde. People might think you're a little flaky. Like there's too much flirtiness when you're talking to a boss, or you're talking to someone that's inappropriate to flirt with, right? Like you got to be mindful of that. And you could also, in Mercury retrograde, because internally, right, retrogrades are all about our internal processing too. So you could get super curious about a bunch of things and sign up for a whole bunch of things and then do none of it, right? Sign up for this class and that course and this and that, and all of this kind of stuff, and then never really do it. So no follow through is another thing that is a kind of a knock on a Gemini, Mercury and Gemini person. But here's the thing, they're engaged with so much stuff, it makes sense that some of it needs to fall through the cracks. So just be mindful of that you might get over committed, and also beware of communicating in a way that other people feel is scattered or flaky. So, take a tip from your Taurus brethren here and slow down your communication just a little bit in Mercury retrograde, because you might that might impact you if you're seeming scattered in a meeting or something like that. Okay. People with Mercury in Cancer are very nurturing people, okay? People who listen very well to other people. And in Mercury retrograde, people with Mercury in Cancer can run the risk of getting overwhelmed by people dumping their nonsense on you or dumping their problems, and you're just becoming this like receptacle for other people. And so what can happen is you can, isolate yourself too much a little bit. So number one, be mindful of people who are kind of using you as an emotional dumpster, and that might increase during Mercury retrograde. And be aware, because Cancer's Mercury in Cancer is also really good at quiet contemplation. Be aware that you might be cutting yourself off from the world, cutting yourself off from communicating with people, and that's also out of balance. Okay, so we're striving to seek balance always in our in astrology, and using astrology for our self-improvement. So just be mindful, too much isolation might be, not a good thing. You might feel that that's not a good thing. Leo. I love how it goes like such opposites, right? Doesn't it feel that way? It feels that way to me too, which is really part of the cool thing about astrology. But Leo, on the other end of the scale, is very bold and entertaining, and all the fire signs are like this. Especially Leo, though, because like all the world's a stage, and I am very, I'm speaking as a Leo. I have Leo, but not in Mercury, or Mercury not in Leo. But it's very fun to be Mercury in Leo, because you are really good at entertaining people. You're really good at being on stage. In Mercury retrograde, though, you could get caught making fun of somebody. Okay, mimicking them, or you could, kind of mimicking someone's speech or manner and get caught doing it. So you just want to be careful about that. You can also, if you're overdoing the on stage part, you could kind of get called out for being kind of a diva. So you just want to be mindful of that. And I think Leo too, Leo in Mercury in Leo is very externally faced, and Mercury in retrograde can be a good time to turn inward with your communication style and be bold about the stories you're telling yourself, or being entertaining to yourself, or something like that. It's not always about going external, okay? So be careful about that, Leo, Mercury in Leo. All right, Mercury in Virgo. This is the other sign that has Mercury as a ruler, and it's also exalted in Virgo. And what that means is it's just really comfortable. The energy feels really good in Virgo when Mercury is in Virgo. And if you have this placement, okay, so Virgos tend to be quite analytical and very precise about things, especially with their communication, of course, because we're talking about Mercury, very precise about their communication. The flip side of this is you could start with Mercury and Virgo, you could start believing your own PR, believing your own nonsense, believing your own self to be like the pundit or the pontificator. And I think this happens also with Capricorn, that because Capricorn's very authoritative, Virgo can tend to be a little too pompous, okay, with Virgo, Mercury and Virgo. You could come off as that. It doesn't mean that you are that. It means that you could seem that way to other people, and you could come off as a little controlling, or trying to steer the conversation too much herding, those type of dogs that herd sheep, right? You could come off as that, and, people could feel a little bit controlled, if you're in a group of people and you're trying to dominate the conversation. So just be mindful, everybody, just be mindful of these things. It doesn't mean it's going to happen. It doesn't mean that you're going to do this during Mercury retrograde, but it's good to know that there's the possibility of this. All right. Libra is a natural diplomat. Libra is very good at seeing both sides of a situation. So this in Mercury retrograde, you could be a lot of this or that, this or that, this or that. And it could drive other people insane, that you're like having trouble making a decision you can argue this side of the case and argue that side of the case. You know, you can be the devil's advocate a little too much, and people could just be like, oh my God, can you just tell me what you think? Instead of like saying, well, this could be a good way to do it, or how about that way, or I can see your side. Like, never really knowing what your own decision is or your own perception of something is, because you're constantly seeing both sides of things. Okay, so that's for Libra. Even though you're a natural diplomat, you could take it a little too far in Mercury retrograde and see both sides as having equal merit, when both sides sometimes don't have equal merit. Just because there's two sides talking doesn't mean they both have the equal weight of correctness, or the equal weight of research, or the equal weight of, you know, whatever the topic is. Okay, so just know that the Libra could be too much of a devil's advocate. All right, now let's move to Scorpio. Scorpio is all about uncovering the truth. Scorpio is about digging in the dark for secrets. Scorpio, you might unwittingly let the cat out of the bag, unwittingly let someone's secret slide, and this might not be your secret to tell. Okay, so you're really good at finding things out. You're really good at knowing how to get to a secret. But in Mercury retrograde, you might want to be mindful about the secrets you reveal. And I was having a conversation with someone one time, and I unwittingly said something that I thought that they would know, and they didn't know. And that's exactly what I'm talking about. I was like, oh, I thought this person would know, but they didn't. So Scorpio, Mercury and Scorpio, you could kind of unwittingly call someone out or tell someone something that they didn't know, and it wasn't really yours to tell. So just be mindful of that. Sagittarius, ever the optimist, right? Sagittarius, ever the optimist. There's this relentless positivity kind of thing, lifelong learner, all of this kind of stuff. Loves story, loves boldness, loves, right? Another fire sign. But Sagittarius, because they are this lifelong learner, they're really interested, curious about lots of different things. They could come off as a little moralistic or judgmental. So you have to like dial that back, or realize that tone is something that comes from a lot of learning, right? You're doing the learning, you're understanding what's going on. But, the moral high ground might be something you might want to move away from during Mercury retrograde, because it could come off as judgmental. All right. And also like toxically positive. That could also happen with a Mercury in Sagittarius because of this, unflagging optimism and the belief that things are going a certain way or going to be a certain way. Be mindful of the tone of your conversations, that other people might take umbrage at that because of their own stuff, whatever's going on. Remember, this is all about communication and how we're coming off to other people. Also, retrogrades are also about internal stories. So you might miss some things, Mercury in Sagittarius, because you're, relentlessly optimistic, and you might miss some nuance in a conversation or in some kind of experience, because you're always looking on the sunny side, which in a sense is really great, but it can also be unbalanced. All right, so pay attention to that. I mentioned Capricorn before a little bit. Capricorn is very grounded, very authoritative. Capricorns don't usually speak unless they know exactly what they're talking about. And so it's a wonderful skill to have, that you are doing the due diligence. You are interested in things. You learn deeply about things. You don't just learn, you're not like a mile wide and an inch deep. Capricorn does go deep. But not everybody needs to know everything about everything. And so know your audience. I mean, I think that's probably for every single sign, but especially for Capricorn, know your audience, because it could come off as pontification, or you could be like, people could be like, oh my God, I don't need to know all this. So just beware of that. Aquarius. Aquarius, a Mercury in Aquarius is like the person who loves going down rabbit holes, okay? So loves conspiracy theories and loves all of this, very rebellious, really gets excited about information that's coming through to you that may be a little unusual. You get really excited about that. So you're going to want to watch for disinformation. You're going to want to be mindful of the sources of the information. So it's cool and fun and all of that kind of stuff, but like, are you going to use this information in your real life? And do you know the sources of all the information that you're consuming? This is an important thing for an Aquarius to pay attention to, especially in Mercury retrograde, because you could get fooled by something, use it in a conversation, and then get in trouble for it or get called out for it or something. Okay, so be careful and track back to the sources of information. That's for Aquarius. And Pisces, you are operating from your subconscious. A Mercury in Pisces is operating from a connection to spirit world all the time. Okay, and more than any of the other signs, Mercury in Pisces is definitely, has that beautiful connection to spirit and, natural channelers, natural shamans and things like that. But be careful for being too ungrounded in Mercury retrograde. You can really float away. All right. And you can also become a little moody. So in your communication with other people, because you're just like, I don't want to deal with you 3D people. I want to hang in the stratosphere. I want to astral travel. Awesome. Just make sure you're a little more grounded during Mercury retrograde than you might normally even be. Okay, because during that time you can literally float away. Your consciousness can just, completely leave you. And while that might be fun once in a while, sometimes like it can get you in trouble. You can like lose touch with what's going on. So be mindful of that. All right, so these are all the signs, and I will do a video about the houses that it falls in, because so what you're going to do is you're going to say, okay, I'm a Mercury in Capricorn and it falls in this house. It falls in my 7th house. Well, that's about relationships. So with my intimate partners, my, one-to-one relationships. So I got to be worried. I got to be paying attention to too much pontification to my partner, to my person who is right here in front of me. It may not be a big deal in the world, but with your relationship, it might impact that. So I will go through the houses too. I'll do it in another video, and I'll link the video when we have it. I'll put a little card right here. And I hope this was helpful for you. If you like this kind of content, please like, subscribe, and share. And also, I'd love to have you write in the comments, did this resonate for you? Did you feel like I covered your sign well? What else comes up for you when I talk about Mercury in retrograde? So I'd love to hear all of your comments and read all of your comments. And I'm sure that you have some great things to say, because you always do. So in Mercury retrograde, be mindful of your communication style online. Be mindful of how you're communicating with other people, and enjoy. Have a good day. Have a good weekend.